absolutely a wonderful moment, and it's great to have wonderful moments in this wonderful old village of ours in Churchtown. Anyway, prior to speaking about Sean Clárach, I think it's important to give background to the prevailing circumstances leading to the Irish poets embracing the Stuart cause, which resulted ultimately in the writing of our anthem, Mo Ghile Mear. What led to the MacDonalds settling in Ireland, or the MacDómhnaills in the Gaelic sense? Following over a century of support of the Catholic royalist cause, the Scottish MacDonald clan was finally stripped of much of their power and possessions and forced to sue for peace. And a section of that clan migrated to their kinsfolk, the MacDonalds, in Antrim. In Ireland, they continued to support the Stuart cause, and thus we find a Shane MacDonald in 1598 in the garrison at Anna Castle, just about 2 miles down this way, right in front of us. The MacDonalds operated a flax mill in High Rath, which is about 1 mile from here, and they gave the mill gave its name Windmill to the locality, but it's still known by that name, the Windmill. We later find another section of the clan, led by Alisdar, or Kiltohig, the left-hander, immersed in the 1641 rebellion, or Adare, the War of the Two Kings. He was shot traitorously following capture after the Battle of Knocknanuss on the 13th of November 1647. And just as a little sideline from Knocknanuss, which is not that far from here, no, 6-8 miles?
Yes, that's right.
About 8 miles from here. It was a very bloody battle. The Irish were led by Taff. And it was such a bloody battle because there was very strong sun on the day. And in the morning, it reflected off the shields of one side, and in the afternoon, reflected off the shields of the other. So there was absolute carnage. And as a result of it, a lot of the horses were left, and they ran away from the battle. And about 1 mile from here, at a place called Buffer's Cross, a lot of the horses were there, and a lot of people in this parish found themselves in possession of quite good horses as a result of the battle. It's a kind of an ill wind, isn't it? You know. Sean Clarach. Well, Sean was born in 1691 in Uncloundove, which is the Black Meadow in High Rath, again is in Rath, about 1 mile from here. The house in which he was born still stands, and we'll show you a picture of it later. We have pictures of it here. It's amazing, it's still there. Obviously a different roof on it, and I thank Noel for recently going out and getting that picture so you can all see it. His parents were the aforementioned flour millers. The nickname Clárach is a source of contention. A lot of people think it is because he was from Clare, but that is not true. Clárach means, in Old Irish, it means broad-faced. And he had, when we see a drawing of him, it's quite obvious that he had quite a broad face and quite a broad forehead. And that's why he was nicknamed Clárach. A Gaelic speaker, he was also fluent in Greek and Latin, and was one of the few poets of the era that was able to write and translate into and from English. The Ireland of Sean Clárach, particularly for those of the Catholic faith, was not an ideal location. The country had suffered the ravages of the Cromwellian campaign with its subsequent and devastating land settlement. The Williamite Wars further decimated a society already groaning under the yoke of the penal laws. The flight of the Earls in September 1607 allowed for some 500,000 acres in the north in Ulster, declared forfeit to the Crown. And in 1717, the Catholic clergy were expelled from the country. while the plantations of Leitrim, Kings and Queens counties, and of Westmeath were authorised in 1621. Catholic education was strictly proscribed, and it was left to the itinerant schoolmaster, the wandering bard, and not least the poet, to nurture the flickering flame of nationalism. Poets were strictly forbidden, however, to use the name of Ireland in their work, but circumvented the proscription by alluding to her in such figurative guises as Maurice Gilbert, Gronowale, Magrimmon Down Dealish, and the like. Small wonder then that when the young pretender, Charles Edward Stuart, launched his bid for the restoration of the Stuart monarchy, Irish poets generally, and Sean Clarach in particular, rallied to the Jacobite cause, notwithstanding that the Stuart line had been, to put it mildly, highly selective in its administration of jurisprudence. After some spectacular successes, the young prince was routed by the Duke of Cumberland at the bloody Battle of Culloden, and earned the name Butcher Cumberland, on the 16th of April 1646. Although a price of £30,000 was placed on the Booney Prince's head, his faithful clansmen refused to divulge his whereabouts, and with the assistance of Flora MacDómhnaill, he escaped across the water to Portree on the Isle of Skye, before sailing to France and eventually to Rome, where he died, and he lies buried in St. Peter's. His flight has left us with perhaps two of the finest ballads of all time, the Skye Boat Song and the Churchtown anthem, known to you as Mo Ghile Mear. Usually sung in Irish to the air of the White Cockade, its 12 verses recount the poet's despair at the defeat and flight of Booney Prince, whom he describes as Mo Ghile Mear, Mo Ghile Mear, my warrior fair, my Caesar, my beloved champion. It has been widely recorded, most notably by the Chieftains, where Sting vocalises, by Mary Black, Jimmy Crowley, and Carla Dillon and Iarla Leonard. It has also been used in advertising features by both Specsavers and more recently by the Sunday Independent. The pen proves anything but a blunt instrument, particularly when the writer resorts to satire, and Sean Clárach was a noted satirist. He reserved his bitterest satire on the death of a Colonel Dawson, who had some of his tenants severely flogged for picking fallen kindling on his lands at Aherlow, County Tipperary. I quote a few of its 11 verses, Boss, Seamus, E. Deshawn, which Sean Clarach actually sang. These have been translated, the best perhaps being this one by Uncreeving Evening, Douglas Hyde, our first president. Now do please remember that Irish being such a figurative language, the words here have lost much of their fire in translation. No fault of Uncreeving. It goes like this. Squeeze down his bones, O ye stones, in your hall of clay. You reeking, gore-sprinkled boar, old Dawson the Grey. Sheeted was his sword when the foeman called to the fray, but he cheated and sold and slaughtered his prey. My pity, my regret, that the 1,000 of your sort are not choked, and John your son a wretch, along with them, in payment for every lying story and trick you ever set afoot. Mangy hounds will be without cessation, tearing your entrails. Although you were ever self-sufficient and excessive and greedy, a narrow time will your treasures live after you. The worms will have your body, picking it voraciously and fiercely, and your soul should be boiling in a cauldron for uncounted years. Although the poem was recited with unrestricted delight by the people of the Galties, it was not quite so well received in the Dawson homestead. Dawson's son John was so enraged when he received a copy that he sent his servants in search of Sean Clarach. Sean, wisely, went into hiding for almost a year, and his disappearance was so absolute that even his bardic friends presumed him dead, one of whom, Sean O'Toole, composed an elegy in which he mourns the loss poetry has suffered through the death of Sean Clárach. On the death of his parents, MacDómhnaill removed to Kiltohig, close by Charleville. He became leader of the Maigue poets, first at Croom and later at Adare. From his Kiltohig home, he also presided over important biannual sessions known as Aiche, at which the leading poets of Munster attended. He was, we are told, one of the few poets with the ability to translate into English, and his version of My Laddie Can Fight, My Laddie Can Sing is highly praised. In addition to his poetical work, Sean Clárach translated from the Greek and was working on a translation of the Iliad when he became terminally ill, we believe with cancer. When Sean died in January 1754, from what they say then was a lingering illness, his bardic companions were devastated. Sean O'Toole, his successor as chief poet, summoned all the poets of Munster to present themselves at a ceremony in Adare in October 1754 to honour their departed leader. In his message, O'Toole described Sean as our fountain of knowledge, our shining light, our chief laureate, our eloquent root tree, Sean Clarach MacDómhnaill, chief sage of the evergreen island of Éire in his time. The poet left his writings to the care of his nephew, the famed Limerick brain surgeon Sylvester O'Halloran. Now just a by one there on O'Halloran. O'Halloran was one of the leading brain surgeons of his time, because faction fighting with the cudgels was very, very prevalent in Tipperary, Limerick, Clare and Cork. And he actually saw people coming to him with gaping wounds in their skulls, and he was able to look right in, and that is how he attained such a knowledge of brain, and became, as I said at the time, some of the books he wrote, or some of the papers he wrote, were lasted nearly 70 to 80 years. So that was Sylvester O'Halloran. But tragically, much of Sean Clárach's stuff somewhere along the line got lost. As Dr. Hyde remarked, it is incalculable loss that so many of his manuscripts have perished. We're fortunate indeed that so much of it remains. There's quite a bit still in existence. We're even more blessed that an original manuscript of his has survived and is held at St. Coleman's College for Moy. Some of you may even have admired it when Noel obtained it on 2 occasions over the last 5 years here. We actually had it in this house, and unfortunately I never saw it, but we will again. We in Churchtown are pleased to acknowledge the efforts of the people of Charleville, not only in the magnificent monument raised over the poet's grave at Holy Cross Cemetery, but also for their continuing role in helping to preserve his memory. Primarily due to the efforts of Noel Linehan, to whom we owe an incalculable debt, Churchtown too has not forgotten Sean Clárach. This is the 5th such evening we've had the pleasure of here, thanks to Noel. Churchtown, we call him Churchtown's poet and Churchtown's pride. A fitting monument to him is planned close to the wine mill cross. It is no more than he deserves from the soil from which he sprung. Sin dara leis mo chúpla focail níos, gar an míl maithag go léir.